discussion and possible action for the financial management summary. For this portion of the meeting, we tend to hold it over to our pass it over to our finance executives to walk us through the summary and point out anything of note to us, and then we'll open it up for Q&A from board members.
Sure. Dave, you want to start? Want to start with the object report?
Marie Shuba has been working with us for the last 6 weeks and actually put together a finance report for tonight, so I'll let her lead the charge.
Perfect, thank
Is
you.
it all right if I pull my mask down for everyone? Is that allowable or not? It's up to you.
They're supposed to stay up.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. No worries. Okay, so I managed to put together a cover sheet, which I think is pretty self-explanatory, but we'll touch on all the topics, and then, of course, if anyone has any questions, I will do my best to answer those. In addition to the financial management report showing all the year-to-date totals of the expenditures in the budget, we provided the board with a monthly check register for both the month of July and the month of August, because I believe in the past you guys have requested this and wanted it, so we're going to continue in that format. And assuming that there's no questions on the check registers, I'll go ahead on to the report, and then we can double back and hit all those questions at once if you have any. So the first item of business, I'm going to go by the subtotal line. I just feel like it's the easiest way to discuss all these. Object codes 110 to 119, which is our certified staff. Currently, there's no significant variances or concerns. Other than stating the obvious, the school year has just pretty much started up. So we'll continue to monitor these accounts as we, to determine if there's any material differences from budget to actual going forward. I did want to point out, though, in both the certified staff and the non-certified staff subtotals, we have yet to encumber the salaries. We plan on doing that going forward. It's just not something that we've managed to get to now, but we should have that by the next board meeting, and then hopefully we'll be able to have a little better assessment of where we are and where we hope to be. Same thing with object codes 120 to 140, the non-certified staff. No variances or concerns as of yet. Early on in the fiscal year, obviously, with activity just starting up for the school year. Again, we'll continue to monitor these accounts to see if there's any material differences we need to address or be concerned with. Next, employee benefits, fringe benefits. Object 210 to 295. I want to point out, obviously, well, I don't need to point it out. It's pointed out on there. Health insurance is obviously showing a deficit. We want to note, before we get into it, it obviously is a significant amount. Please note that the employee contributions have yet to be accounted for and posted. So you will see this figure come down a good portion, but certainly not for the full amount. So we're going to have to continue to monitor this. We did anticipate this to be an item of concern, as we knew that it was probably not budgeted for.
So, if I could pause on that, that's a question. I know that when we do our budget, we put in the same anticipated healthcare insurance increase as the town does. So did we just both underestimate the amount of the increase, or were we told that we were only going to have a certain increase and then it came back higher?
I'll speak briefly on that. The budget was put together before we began, so we weren't privy to this conversation. It was actually adopted before.
No, I understand that, but just in like looking at it now and seeing how it's not what it needed to be, has a conversation with the town come up about if they're in the same situation, or no conversation? Okay, can we look into that and see
Certainly.
exactly what the increase actually was and what we budgeted for, because that was done in collaboration with the town, or at least it has traditionally been.
And I think that's a great suggestion for future planning to be proactive. So that's saying, Kristen, that absolutely that we're not below what the estimated cost.
Right.
I'll absolutely look into that and have a response for you
Thank you,
guys.
that's great. Okay.
Okay, so all other object lines in that subtotal seem to be on par. So going to the next, object codes 320 to 340, which are for personal services, no significant variances or concerns. Object codes 411 through 450, infrastructure services. So in addition to encumbrances totaling $373,000 for anticipated estimated costs, we have incurred additional expenses under Object code 433, which is equipment repair and maintenance for the middle school for the replacement of the flow meter for fire pump and some AC repairs this year. Obviously unexpected expenditures that, we weren't anticipating. I believe all of those have been accounted for at this point, so we'll keep monitoring it going forward, and hopefully there will be no other surprises, although time will tell. Object codes 510 to 519, transportation. New for this year, we have encumbrances totaling $1.9 million, noted on the financial report that reflect our blanket purchase orders for estimated costs for transportation. I think it goes without saying that we know that we're experiencing issues with the lack of bus drivers, and there's going to be a lot of variables that come into play with this situation, although I know as of right now, David, you can interject if I'm correct, I know we have combined some bus routes already, so I have to believe that there's going to be some cost savings on that end, but until the situation is rectified, everyone's struggling with what the right solution is for this. So again, we'll be monitoring it and just, doing our best to handle it at any problems that as they come up, and of course report them back as needed. Place here, transportation. Okay, object code 530, communications, no significant variances or concerns. Object codes 520 to 529, insurance. This is another line item that appears to have been under budgeted. Invoices have already been received and have been applied and is currently 10% over budget. I'm not sure if you want me to investigate that as well. I'm just asking because you asked about the health insurance.
It's so much of a smaller
obviously.
number that, it's.
But still, it would be nice to know, since this is definitely another one of those line items that, those invoices that come in that we tend to know a little bit ahead of time, so we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, right.
Okay, a little investigation on that. Tuition, object codes 561 to 564. Note that there was an adjustment of, let's talk about this. There was an adjustment that we were asked to rectify for an amount of $189,000 that was made to the request of the board to bring down the total budget to 2% for this fiscal year. When Dave and I came on board, the amount had been deducted from the total bottom line figure, but as far as we could tell in going back and retracing steps, we couldn't tell where it had been appropriated to, what line items. So we did deduct that figure from the special ed account, knowing that this is one of those items that tends to have a lot of variability anyway, and we would address it as we move forward. But I did want to point out that that is where we made the adjustment.
Yeah, I feel like as a committee, and in fact, we should really figure out how we want to deal with that. Because the proper thing, which is not to say that what you did was improper, I understand it had to come out of some line.
Right.
The proper thing would have been to bring the budget back to the board and make those adjustments in the areas where we felt comfortable making them, because this is probably not one of the line items that we would have made, because this tends to go over budget every year as it is anyway.
We agree.
So I feel like as a committee, we should figure out if we want to do more of a deep dive on a quarterly basis, where we look at actuals versus forecasts, and then we make adjustments to the budget and bring it back to the full board. I don't know the mechanisms of what we would need to do that, or quite honestly, the wisdom of it. So, maybe we can do some thinking on that, and you guys come back to a recommendation. Because I've always been kind of bothered by that idea that we put a budget for it, the board adopts the budget, the town reduces the budget, we do the one line item for purposes of the town budget referendum, but we never go back and then revisit and reallocate, either based on what we've had to reduce or just based on changing circumstances, whether it's the health insurance coming in. Really, we're still looking at a budget that we put together in February, minus $189,000. So I look to a recommendation from you guys on how to better align from a budgeting and forecasting perspective. Yeah, please.
I like the idea of the quarterly reports to show actual and forecast, because I'm not sure, and I don't know what you ask this, what your definition of encumbrance is. Is that your forecast for the year? Is it what you know is, is it time bound? Because it's confusing to see some are encumbered and some are not. Does that mean we're not going to have those expenses, or we just don't know yet? So maybe a quarterly report to show a forecast where you think we're going to.
Okay, so in addition,
Yeah.
okay, just a little more detail.
And I'd like to see actual for last year, because then
like a prior year comparison, just to make sure I'm understanding.
Just so the actual for the 2020 to 2021, somewhere along this, so that the questions that we've asked tonight are, well, was this above budget from last year, is it below budget, why is it overrun? It's just another point of reference.
Okay.
So my suggestion would be like more, like we can do it at the quarterly interval where we see some additional numbers to just help understand what's changed and what's really driving any significant matters.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. Not a problem.
If I could piggyback on that, I would also think that when you do that, that obviously you're going to include the hierarchy of our administration to decide where changes are going to be made in the budget. No disrespect to business managers, but we want the educational experts to then decide.
But adjustments typically aren't made by the business office.
Right.
Well, no things that are out of thing, but the actual decisions need to come from department managers, superintendents.
Right, absolutely. In that process, we will talk about budget calendar and timeline, needs assessment, priorities. And as Ed has said, all of us will be in collaboration, making recommendations and working together with you all very closely and prioritizing. I think just the fact is where they've been contracted to come in and then just gotten an end part and the whole budget process is not in general. I know, Dave, how you would conduct businesses overall. Right. So that's where we will go. I think the quarterly report recommendation is excellent as well, because the board of ed needs to see exactly where they're at. And as we move forward and prioritize the budget for the next year, actually the budget process as well needs to start here early fall by December, and needs assessment should be established. So there needs to be really an established budget timeline of exactly what we're going to do. So we look forward to for the guidance of all three of you and working together. But David, you could share some examples of some districts that you've worked with that would help.
That would be wonderful. Same some examples of what the timeline and
Yeah, that's what I've always done in previous districts.
One of the thoughts, and I'll just, not to take away from the presentation, but just for continuity and ease of, large group or board meetings, sometimes it's very easy to get kind of lost in the weeds when we're talking about individual operating bills, water and sewer fees, or something that's relatively low cost and not budget impactful. So what I may recommend, and I'd like to get your input on the next meeting, but maybe we talk about subtotal lines, professional services, infrastructure services, transportation services, and we talk about those categories and why those categories as a whole are over, under, where the variances are, and what we might want to transfer between categories to essentially balance the budget. Because now you're talking about, transportation or staffing or facilities and repair as a conglomerate or a large group, and it makes those decisions a little bit easier because now you're focused on, the direction of the school as a whole, as opposed to things that you don't have a lot of control over, like liability insurance.
right.
And we can talk about that, but it doesn't change the fact that we're going to still have to pay for liability. Right? So maybe that's a different way you can see it, and we can bring some examples forward next month.
That'd be great. And what I'm used to is variances are either, percentage or dollar amount, so 25% or 25,000 plus or minus. That way there's at least what we'd be interested in. I don't know if that's the right number, but that's like.
Fair enough.
For variance.
Understood. Okay, I did put another entry on there regarding finalization of student enrollments and initial billing. This typically occurs in October, and of course that will allow us to better evaluate the budgeted amounts versus the actual impacted costs as well. Then the next two object codes, 580 and 590, which are travel and adult education services. Again, at this point, there's no significant variances or concerns. Object code 610 to 690, supplies. As regards, there's a deficit in the object code 641, which is textbooks and curricular materials. Encumbrances for new math textbooks for the elementary schools has in fact been applied. These are applicable to a grant, which would then obviously rectify the situation and will be adjusted in future reports. And finally, object code 730 to 745, which is equipment. Again, an encumbrance in 730, equipment instructional, which will be applicable to a grant, which would rectify the situation for future reports. So, overall, it's early in the year, we all know that. There's some things that are very obvious that are, take place very early on in the cycle, and so those things have been addressed, but we have obviously to monitor as we go forward, and as we move forward and we have more issues on hand, and we can address those as they appear.
Great, okay.
Any other questions or any questions?
That's anything? No, I'm good, thank you. That's anything?
Yeah, I was just curious, because there's talk everywhere about the shortage of bus drivers, obviously. And if they were to do, because I know some bus companies are offering incentives to get bus drivers. And this may be a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. That would not impact us if they decide to give incentive to the bus drivers. Then I would come back to the board, Seymour, and say, well, you were short 10 bus drivers, so in order to get you 10 extra bus drivers, we put an incentive there, and I'm going to throw it back at you to help us pay for this incentive.
So I don't want to speak too much at the finance committee meeting. The All-Star Transportation, I believe, has a representative here for the general board as a whole, and we'll let them address that at that time. So I'm not speaking on their behalf. I think that's probably a better way to answer it.
Okay.
It's a really good question as well.
Okay.
We're also behind the design.
Okay, so, thank you very much, and I would entertain a motion to recommend to the full board the approval of the financial management summary ending August 31st, 2021, as presented.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Beth, seconded by Ed. All in favor? Aye. Passes unanimously. In terms of a report, I don't have chairman's report prepared, but just to reiterate some of the comments that we talked about tonight, let's try to work out some kind of a timeline, and I understand that we only have 3 weeks between now and the next meeting, so we'll be realistic in terms of what we want to accomplish, but I don't want to lose sight of doing a debrief on the issue that happened also prior to you joining, when we learned that our electricity budget, our electricity line item was underfunded due to miscommunication or not being in sync with the switch over to solar. So I just didn't want to lose sight of that conversation, but I will email you guys, and we'll figure out together what's a realistic timeline to address the ongoing budget, the new budget coming up, and then that issue as well. Because I know we can't do it all at the same time. Any comments from the superintendent? Is there a superintendent's report?
Yes, just very quickly, I would just like to mention that we would like to close out the application process for the business manager position. I realize that it's been posted since early spring, back in February. Therefore, at this time, I sent also to the board members a copy of the business manager job description, again, just a review. Also, a copy of the job posting. We are going to be calling any applicants who do not, at this time, that the application is not complete, if any recommendation letters or whatever is due, we're going to ask them to submit that. I'm sure that many of them are still looking to get the 085 certification from Connecticut Department of Ed, and that's an ongoing process because it involves a crime check process. So we'll be working with those, even though the certification will be submitted. We know if they meet the qualifications that the Department of Ed will grant that. So I just want to mention that we are looking at the possibility to start the interviews with the Finance Committee September 20th through the 23rd. We found out that the conflict 21st happens to be a union negotiations meeting. So we'll work through that, but we'd like to set up the finalists and bring forth candidates and go through the Finance Committee first. And then after that, by October 4th, we would like to bring the final candidate to the Board of Education. I'd like to go into executive session and go through some of the interview process and what the board
Board of Education meeting, so I will open it up for any public comment, specifically on the Finance Committee issues. Okay, going twice for public comment. And there is third call for public comment. Hearing or seeing none, I would accept the motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
Beth and Ed, all in favor of adjourning the meeting? Aye. Thank you guys very much.
Yep, hold on. I'm sorry, you have my back too.
I know, I wrote them. We got all of them back. We're almost at
Call the meeting to order. If you could please stand and pledge the flag behind you.
Chair, any board members who want to make comments about the tragedy of 9/11. I think 9/11 helped bring our country together. Today, unfortunately, we have issues such as the COVID pandemic, and unfortunately, the parties and divide of the Congress and the country that started this apart. We have to refocus ourselves and come together as one country with a common goal to make our country stronger and better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to go a little bit out of order, and we're going to do number 3 first before number 2. So, Dr. Thompson?
Yes, tonight it is our extreme honor to honor an individual who's been a lifelong educator and actually front board member and board chair. At this time, this is a very distinguished award, and I'd like for the Viking principal to please come forward and the staff, and we'd like to make this honorary recognition.
Thank you, Dr. Compton and Board of Education members. Tonight, it's an honor and a privilege to share that Mr. Ed Stramello, Board of Education Chairperson, was a recipient of the Connecticut Association of Schools Distinguished Friends of Education Award. Congratulations, Mr. Stramello. Mr. Stramello has been involved in education for over 30 years, and he remains heavily involved. He lives by a motto and shares his motto with others. I still have that plaque in my office. Those who dare to teach should never cease to learn. Carry on. Mr. Stramello was instrumental for his vision of the district's Bound for Success program, bringing community members who mentor our students. He reads more classrooms every chance he gets. He participates as a career-based teacher, talking about his love for learning, sports, and athletics. Mr. Stramello always puts children first. Through his continuous support to education, he has helped to build a strong, positive, caring climate and culture for our students, our staff, and for the Seymour community, while helping to improve student learning. His dedication and commitment to children and to the Seymour community is an inspiration to everyone. He's an amazing person who values education. He's an educator, a valued community member, a dad, a granddad, a coach, and a mentor. To share how amazing Mr. Stramello is, Mr. Cummings, Mrs. Fredino, Mrs. McCullough, and Mrs. Yoxel have a few words to add.
So it's my letter to nominate Mr. Stramello. I am nominating Mr. Edward Stramello for the Distinguished Friend Award. Mr. Stramello is very active in the Seymour Public Schools community and has been for several years. I've known Mr. Stramello for well over 15 years, and he is an example of outstanding dedication to the Seymour Public Schools community. Mr. Stramello is currently a chairperson for the Seymour Board of Education and has been for many years. He also participates in several organizations that revolve around our students and their learning. For many years, he has been a part of the driving force behind our school's community mentoring program, Bound for Success. He collaborates with other teachers to ensure that students are matched with an adult within the community in order to help coach and guide students throughout their school career. Mr. Stramello is also an active member with other programs that promote student learning as well. For instance, he has helped to initiate programs such as Read Across America and Read Across the Valley, which promote reading in all of our school buildings. These programs involve different adults from our community reading to all students. The volunteers expose students to good reading, along with different genres that they may typically not have interacted with in the past. Each year, Bone East Elementary School holds a career day that incorporates several adults presenting their careers to students to expose them to different careers. Mr. Stramello has been attending this Career Day program for several years in order to share his knowledge with students. With all of Mr. Chamel's involvement within the Seymour Public School community, it is evident that he is a prime example of someone deserving of this award. Thank you.
If I can interrupt 1 minute, Mrs. Yaxel was an 8th grade student of mine in my first administrative job. Thank you.
So this is also my letter that I wrote recommending Mr. Stamala for this prestigious award. Mr. Stamala is a wonderful educator. He has held many positions throughout his career as an educator, but I know him best as principal. I had the honor of working with Mr. Stamala from 2005 to 2009 as he served as my building principal. He took great pride in his school and continues to take great pride in his district. He attended all after-school activities, many sporting events, and even announced winning teams during our morning announcements. Mr. Stamala was a supportive administrator who gave great advice, whether I needed help with a lesson plan, a behavior problem in the classroom, or even a parental concern. He was also fair. He always listened to my concerns, thought about them, and we could always come up with a solution that we both agreed upon. He made his entire staff feel as though we were part of the team. He was caring, yet stern, and always put children first. Even after his retirement, Mr. Stamala continues to serve his town and the education community. He volunteers year after year to read to classes across the district as part of Read Across America and Read Across the Valley. These two initiatives support a love of reading and show students reading is fun and important in everyone's life, adults as well as students. He also volunteers his time as a career-day speaker each school year. It is truly a pleasure to see how excited the students get as they hear about career opportunities in education. Mr. Stamala has served as a Seymour Board of Education member for many years, and he is currently Seymour Board of Education chairperson. During his reign, Mr. Stamala has continued to work hard to make sure the Seymour School District is a great one. Mr. Stamala also serves on many other subcommittees to ensure greatness at all of Seymour's public schools. I highly support the nomination of Edward Stamala to receive the Cass Distinguished Friend of Education Award. He is the right candidate for the award. It is with great pleasure that I support the recommendation of Edward Stamala for the Distinguished Friend of Education Award. I'm an elementary school teacher at Bondy Elementary School in Seymour. I've been honored to be under the tutelage of Mr. Stamala during his reign of building principal for 3 years. I see this prestigious award as intended for a person with a strong contribution to education at the local, state, regional, or national level over an extended period of time. Mr. Stamala fits these guidelines perfectly. He currently serves as the chairperson for the Seymour Board of Education and implemented a mentoring program to support students with academic and social-emotional battles. Edward Stamala is a born leader. His passion for education rings true in every statement he makes. The goal of an influential leader in education is to encourage and provide opportunities for growth of knowledge. In his time at Bondy Elementary, you can see the essence of his passions and beliefs in every inch of our school. As a principal, he was always supportive and professional. He provided clear feedback to better the individual's instruction. Mr. Stamala made his impression in our school and our town. We still use his words in our morning announcements every day, children first. I can wholeheartedly support Edward Stamala for this award. He demonstrated leadership and a vision for excellence, and it has made a positive impact on our school and our community. Thank you.
Hey, Glenn, I'm going to kind of go off the cuff a little bit because a lot of the stuff that, board chairperson, Read Across the Valley, Bound for Success, all those programs that he's done. But first, I want to excuse my parents. I'm coming from Pop Warner coaching football and, giving back to my community, kind of like I learned from you. So, in all seriousness, on a personal note, I never told him this before, but he was a mentor to me. And he didn't even know it. I looked up to him. He was a role model for me in my early years. I felt comfortable going to him with personal situations, whether it be my own personal family stuff or with teaching and academics. And he was always right there to lend a helping hand and give me a piece of advice. I was just thinking about some like character traits I could think about when I think about Mr. Schmel. And first is definitely professional, always carries himself in a professional way, devoted and passionate to education. As you all are aware, you're all at these board meetings, and he's here still donating his time and volunteering his time after all these years, and even in his retirement. But, you know, Mr. Schmel, I looked up to you then, and I still do now, that you're still giving back to your community, and I hope that I too, at your age, am still doing that as well. So with that, I have a lot of respect for you, and I couldn't expect anybody else better for this award than you.
Down and get the certificate.
Mr. Schmel, you have to have a decoration. Oh my goodness.
For your family to come on too, and all of the teachers that, yeah.
Hold on, here it comes. Gotta decorate, Mr. Stramello, hold on.
Still wearing those ties too, Mr. Chicago. Still wearing those ties. You want.
Just tell me something. I'm glad the family could come out. I've heard that,
For the young ones, so we're sorry.
okay. Yes, so this, yes, no children, we wouldn't have an education system.
That's why I moved it, that's why I tried moving
Yes.
it up.
Yeah. And also, I know his wife sends the regard, she's in Gettysburg, and she's very
Yes, just so
proud.
there's no rumors about my relationship with my wife, why she's not here.
Oh my goodness.
She's a licensed battlefield guy who works at Gettysburg National Park, and that's where she is. I don't want any rumors.
It is.
Right here, hop right in with your pizza.
With you, so we can get,
I'm sorry.
yes.
Put your feet up here, you can sit, you can stand, you can stand. Okay, Ava's not gonna be able to.
Ava's here though, we know that. Do I see Ava peeking? Okay. Maybe she'll hop in the bottom. We see her feet. Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Here. Funny picture. I can do it anyway. Here we go.
Thank you, thank you.
Oh, I'll take it. Why don't you go I'm good. I'm good. Perfect. Oh, very nice.
All right.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Let's make it official.
Make it official.
That's right. From the Connecticut Association of Schools 2021 Distinguished Friend of Education Award. Yes.
Oh, there you go. Could you just like stand at the end there, Mr. Stramello? I'm sorry, I'm kind of a picture. Ready? That's lovely. Thank you.
children have and parents have. Well done.
Yes.
I've always said that the last years of my educational career were probably the best. I have to be very careful because I spent 33 great years in Arizona also to do this service to those children and those students for me to say one school district is better than the other. But I enjoyed it immensely in my last years there. And I'm glad they remember that those who dare teach should never cease to learn. And I also think that those who dare to learn should never cease to learn also. Those who dare to lead, should never cease to learn. Okay, I will go now to the public comment. I'd like to read this verse before the public comment portion starts. Public comment provides the opportunity for the public to make a comment. It is not a dialogue between the board and the public. Based upon what is heard during public comment, the board may choose to add a topic to the agenda. If questions are posed that the chairman is able to answer, those questions may be addressed under the chairman's comment portion of the agenda, which is later on in the agenda. The board will not discuss personnel matters. Comments should be respectful and no longer than 3 minutes in length, so that all who wish to comment may have the opportunity to do so. All the public wanting to comment will need to state their name and address for the record prior to addressing the board. With that, who from the public would like to comment? Yes. You could stand, please. And give us your name and your address. And if you would come closer, that would help some of us whose hearing may be faded.
Sure. So my name is Amber Jean Hansen of 51 Birchwood Road in Seymour. And I didn't have a prepared statement because I didn't know I'd be able to comment today. So I just felt compelled to come and show my support for the board and for the Seymour school system, after what I saw happen at the last meeting. And to thank you. Your decisions are part of what helped my daughter to be able to go to school. I have a child who is immunosuppressed that had to stay home for the past year and a half, and it was very difficult. She had a very difficult road just to get to the point where she could go to school. So I just want to express my gratitude and know that you're helping the most vulnerable. And I think of what her living liver donor had said when we met her after she donated part of her liver to my daughter. I said, why would you donate part of your liver to a child you've never met, you didn't know? And she said that my temporary discomfort was worth the life of another child. And that's an amazing person, and I think that we can all be amazing people and be Seymour strong together. And I just really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for considering children like my daughter and like others in the school system that are vulnerable. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to comment? Anyone else wishing to comment? Okay, and the last call, anyone else wishing to comment? Okay, hearing none, the public comment portion at this time is over. I was remiss to start first with introductions. So if we could start with our student representative, if you would.
Hi, my name is Corinne Weaver. I'm the Senior Board of Education representative.
Okay.
Beth Mysteria, Kristen Harlan,
Chris Champagne from Athena. Jay Hatfield.
Ed Stromel, Board Chair, Jay Hatfield, Vice Chair.
Peter Kivick.
James Garofalo.
Dan Darby, Board Clerk.
Susan Compton, your new school superintendent. This is my first official board meeting.
Bob Tenza, Associate Superintendent.
Christopher Boyle, Director of Pupil Services.
David Fiorello, Interim Business Manager.
Steve Gardner, General Manager at All Star Transportation.
Marie Kashuba, interim business manager, sidekick.
Okay, thank you. Move along to 4, which is the consent agenda. What is the board's pleasure?
reinstatement of the intern program. There's a motion for the board's consideration. What is the board's pleasure?
I would make a motion, this is Kristen Harlan, to approve the recommendation of Superintendent Dr. Susan Thompson and Associate Superintendent Ron McKenza to hire an intern for each school year for the 2021-2022 school year.
Second. You mean for each school, Kristen, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Any discussion?
How would it be funded? And could you just talk a little bit about the rationale for this year?
Okay, I'll let Ms. Tenza do that because basically it's been something that's been done before in Seymour and it worked really well and due to the shortage of substitute teachers and where we're at this time. So I'll let Ms. Tenza tell the history and why this is a good recommendation.
Sure, we are definitely struggling with finding substitutes across the state of Connecticut. Lots of teachers were hired, substitute teachers were hired for a variety of positions. There's definitely a shortage. There always has been, there's a bigger shortage now. A few years ago, we did have interns, one in each building, and an intern is somebody who already has their bachelor's degree, who is attending university. Ours were predominantly coming from Sacred Heart or University of Bridgeport. We had some from the University of New Haven, and then they stopped their educational program. So these are students that have their bachelor's, that are getting their master's in an educational related field. And part of their field work is a one-year internship, and they would serve in our district in a building for the year, pretty much as another additional building substitute. The difference only is that they're actually a bit of a bargain. So they're approximately $82 a day. Our substitutes that we hire are anywhere from $105 to $115 a day, depending on whether they have a four-year degree or an active teaching certification. So it's a less expensive option. It provides a pool of people that exist as opposed to substitutes are getting harder to find. We're still looking, but there are interns. The colleges have reached out to us to try to place interns. They were cut a few years ago from the budget as a planned item, even though we all knew that we were going to end up just needing more substitutes, in reality.
Due to COVID and so forth now, it's good to revitalize this plan again. Let's try.
That's our commitment, is to try to find another way to put, potentially certified educators in front of our students that can really carry on instruction. And, we're just trying every way we can to try to support our teachers with their work.
Okay, Kristen?
Yeah, thank you.
Do you have a question?
One more statement, through the chair. So I was blessed to have the opportunity to be an intern in Fairfield Public Schools. I wholeheartedly support the opportunity, paying it forward. So obviously, I did my degree Fairfield University, so interaction we can have, contact there would be great. As I'm somewhat biased. But the other thing I was going to ask was, for the state, again, this is a great opportunity also for us to look at, and I said it before, but to contact our legislature to say, again, the substitute issue, years ago, you only needed a 52 or a certain amount of credits to become a substitute teacher. I do believe that for people who are in their freshman, sophomore year finished and have that kind of credits, and are interested in still feeling out whether they want to pursue education, that's a great opportunity for them to be able to substitute teach. And we as a board, or however we do it with Kate, should send a letter to the legislature to change that legislation back to the way that it was. To allow people who are having associate's degrees, so to speak, to be able to join the pool. Because you're really eliminating so many candidates who are sophomores or rising sophomores into junior year, and who can gain from this experience and get their educational background variety, so to speak. So I don't know how we can do that, to send a letter to the legislature or talk to our representative, state senator, to get that done. Because again, I I think that internship is 100% a great program. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to widen that pool.
That's an excellent recommendation. It's still done in a lot of surrounding states, even in the tri-state. Jersey still does it, so it'd be great if Connecticut could go back and revitalize it as well. So let's see if we can make that contact. Thanks for sharing that. We didn't think of that.
I have a question on that. I thought previously, because we had interns now as principal here, that there was some cost to us for the intern's education. Is that no longer part of it?
It's roughly $15,000, which comes out to approximately roughly $5 a day for 180 days.
So the cost.
That is the cost.
That's part of it. Okay, gotcha. And, you know, and I'll echo what Jay said, that having had interns is a great way, it's a great opportunity for us to train new teachers, because there are certain people we have hired who were interns. Both in Arizona, I worked in Seymour also, who watch. And the great thing about it, it's a person that the kids know and realize that person's going to be there tomorrow too. Because sometimes a substitute, and there are some children that love to give substitutes a hard time at all levels. You know, this person's coming back the next day, so they're going to be a little bit less likely to be fooling around with a substitute they know is going to be there. So it makes for a better opportunity for the kids too. A better learning opportunity for the person from that kind of space. So I wholeheartedly support that.
But if I may, just during this year where COVID continues to stress all kinds of resources, an intern is less likely to leave for a position than a regular voting sub who is potentially looking for a full-time position.
It's an opportunity to kind of grow your own.
Right. Anyone else? Yes, Pat.
What is the status of our building substitutes? Are they vacant? Are they filled?
I believe that we are looking for one or two. It's
One or two.
fluctuating on a daily basis. People are taking jobs, we're hiring and they're taking jobs. So we keep reposting. And interviewing.
It's definitely one or two positions are currently.
Yep.
Anyone else? Jay?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, if I may, and whatever we can do as a central office to help facilitate the interim certification for athletics to any of these candidates or extracurricular activities could, get involved. Once we get them on board, we can, a little bit of time, but I know we have some coaching vacancies. That would be a great opportunity to, expand our network.
Very good. Very good.
Anyone else? Okay, we had a motion by Ms. Harmon, correct?
Yeah.
And a second. Jay. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, hearing no, all those in favor again, raise your hand, please. Again, I count 8. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, moving right along to authorization to carry a firearm in school grounds. You have a motion for consideration. What is the board's pleasure?
I'll make that motion to allow the superintendent in collaboration with Seymour Chief of Police to authorize Rich Kearns, Director of Security, to carry a firearm on school grounds through the end of the 21-22 school year. The arrangement will be reviewed and may be reauthorized prior to the beginning of each school year.
Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Chris. Any discussion? Yes,
Mr.
Jerry.
Chair, sorry, just a quick question. Remind me as to why we don't have to include the security officers into this authorization, or is that just due to the nature of the position?
The position is to revalidate that he can do this as the director of security.
I'm sorry, I missed your first.
Yes, in regards with the other, I don't think the other is necessary, it's just specifically.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions? Okay, motion by Peter, second Chris. All those in favor, raise your hand, please. I see 8 abstentions. Mrs. Bruno opposed. All right, 8 with 1 abstention. Okay, additional hours for school nurses is the next item on the agenda. What is the board's pleasure?
I make a motion to approve the recommendation of the superintendent and associate superintendent to pay the school nurses an additional 3 hours of pay per week for which are time needed to collect the necessary information to comply with the vaccination executive order.
Second motion.
Okay, any discussion? Yes, Ms. Arnold.
I totally support this motion, just curious to know the status of our floating nurse position, if that has been filled.
Still
Yeah.
floating.
Great, okay.
We talked to her today, actually, with being highly utilized. Just, again, in regards with this need to do all the additional tracking, vaccination records, as well as ongoing weekly tests.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Super. Any other board members wishing to comment on this motion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. I count 9 this time, opposed, abstentions. Motion passes unanimously 9-0. And then next is Miss Karina Weaver, our senior representative now, not our junior as before. Congratulations.
So, hi, my name is Karina Weaver. I'm now the senior Board of Education representative, and I just wanted to say how great it is to see everybody in person. I am my first person Board of Education meeting, and it's really nice to not be in the computer anymore. To start, I just want to talk about how good it felt to walk into the buildings of First Station this year. I haven't done that since sophomore year, and I think the rush of the first aid visits was really nice. Like I haven't missed that feeling. And before school started, the middle group was able to have their freshman orientation. They had majority of it outside because of COVID. But the freshmen were able to still for the building. And thankfully, sports are still running this year. The boys soccer team has played 2 games so far this season, and won one of them. And the girls soccer team has played 1 game this season, and the football team has their first home game this Friday at 7 against Bellevue. And clubs are starting back up, and it's also nice for those to be back in person again, because last year majority of the meetings was like after hours, so it was like random. And lastly, the junior Board of Education representative showed me that, but should be a part of it.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? Now, I didn't hear about the volleyball unless I missed it. Did you mention volleyball?
I didn't mention volleyball, but I know they also.
Okay. And our cheerleaders
Yeah.
I believe. Now, do we have cross country this year?
Cross country also running.
Okay. And the swimming, did you mention the swimming team?
Swim team, I believe is running. I know the girls are doing it. I'm not sure, but I've seen it.
Well, the boys are usually, from what I remember, boys are winter and the girls are. Right. And I did notice also that we, unlike some teams, kept our golf team in the spring with some of the schools in the area, more often the Litchfield county area moved to the fall because of the availability of courses, which to me makes a little bit of sense because in the spring you're competing with all of the gentlemen that come on in the springtime and probably maybe less in the fall, so that may be, but again, that would have to be an NBL decision on that. That could be something we got on. Anybody else have any questions? Or Ms. Weaver? No one? Okay, good job. All-Star Transportation Bus Update. Mr. Steve Gardner, you have the floor, sir.
So I want to speak on behalf of our whole company and actually our whole industry. We are experiencing the worst school bus driver shortage this nation has ever seen. We've lost between 15 and 20% of our school bus drivers in the state of Connecticut since March of 2020. And as a company, we are short 126 drivers throughout the 18 terminals that we service. We're doing the best that we can, and it's a struggle every day. We're combining routes, we're doubling up on routes, but just when you think you get ahead, you take one step forward, you take 3 steps backward, in the same day. And that's what happened today. We lost 3 drivers today. They just gave their notice. 2 of them being Seymour drivers. So it's a struggle. We've been doing everything we can. All summer we've been recruiting heavily. We've been on radio. We've been at job fairs. We've been hanging flyers, putting banners out, newspaper ads. Been on the radio. I've been on TV. So we're trying to get the word out. It's a nationwide problem, and we don't have an answer to why we're not getting school bus drivers.
First, I want to thank Steve for coming, and he came at our request. It's obviously been a challenging start to the year. We're not alone. That is not an answer. We have, and thanks to Pat and the back office, because she really does understand transportation as well as anybody in the district. We've really been trying our best to help, at least on the Board of Ed side, mitigate as much as we can. With that said, we've been able to combine a couple routes. Now, that's not ideal because it creates longer routes, but it's a short-term measure to get kids to and from school. We had some really good conversations last week, and I think, and I know we've all spent a lot of time over the last few weeks, few months, really thinking about this problem and how to address it. And I think this is one of those times where there isn't really a great answer. There are a couple options on the table that we can talk about, and none of them are good options. And I'll just kind of start by prefacing that. But our goal here is to provide transportation solutions, and that's what we're trying to do. We have enough buses, we just don't have enough drivers. So at some other districts that I've worked at, and just to preface this, we're going to get pushed back no matter what we do. So again, there's no good answer. But we have put out forms, and it's optional. Per state statute, we do have to provide a seat for every student, and we did. But if parents wish to opt out of transportation in the short term, it would be helpful to the district. And it's not because we don't want to provide transportation, we're in a difficult situation. Because if people actually did do that, we may be able to combine more routes. It's not a permanent thing. I can tell you that All-Star has already come forward and said, whatever routes we don't run, we're not going to be charging for, obviously. So there is some savings on that, but that's not really the focus here. The focus is trying to do what's right and trying to work with our provider. And I think Steve said it well. This problem isn't specific to our transportation provider directly. It's all transportation providers. We happen to have a very good one. And I've heard stories from other districts. And the way I've always thought about these relationships is their partnerships. We've been with All-Star for a number of years. When things were really tough last year, we did as much as we could to help. We kept drivers employed, we paid our bills, we did everything we could do. And I know they're doing everything they can do to help our district as well. So we're trying at the district side, the central office side, to think of any and all alternatives to get kids to and from school in a safe manner. The state has made some changes, short-term changes. They've taken the background screening process for new drivers, which used to take as long as 6 weeks. They've shortened that to 72 hours. Some other states are really making some bigger changes. Wanda just sent me a fascinating email just earlier today to talk about how Massachusetts actually pulled in the National Guard to help us. And it didn't surprise me at all because All-Star at one point had, I think, 900 drivers. And when the pandemic hit, they went down to as low as 700 drivers. So a huge percentage of our workforce up the top. You have to think about, who our school bus drivers are. In some cases, they're at-risk populations. Even though I think we compensate fairly, it's still not a highly compensated position. And it is highly regulated. So school bus drivers have a lot of requirements in order to be certified to drive a school bus. And that's sort of safety regulated. So thank you so much for coming here and at least explaining it from the all-star perspective. But I also want to let the board know from the district perspective, we are trying to help as well. And I can't even imagine as a parent how inconvenient this is. I'm a parent, I have children, and when you think about a route not being on time or a route running late or your kids getting home late, we all have lives and we all have schedules and how disruptive that can be. So the thing that we could probably do better on, and I know we can do better on, is communication of when routes aren't running, or if they are running, when they're going to be late, or if changes happen, how we do that. So that's going to be our primary focus, in addition to solving this challenge.
And again, Pat has just done a tremendous job. She's been on this from very early in the morning to very late in the evening. I just want to say that publicly, that she's been tremendous. And thank you for coming.
You're welcome. But be here.
Okay. I have a question first, and I'll let the do. Have you thought about the incentive, extra money for drivers, and then corollary to that? If you would do that, would that impact our budgeting numbers?
So the incentives that are running currently, all that does is take drivers from one town and put them in another town. It's not solving the driver shortage. The other thing is who is funding that? I mean, certainly our company could not absorb a $5,000 per employee sign-on bonus. Because obviously we wouldn't be in business if we did. I know some school districts, like New Haven Public Schools, they are absorbing a $5,000 incentive to get school bus drivers. At one point, they were down to 44 drivers, they're down 26 drivers right now.
So it's probably worth the board considering. With consolidations of routes, there is anticipated savings. So if we want to do something as a district, we can, the administration can discuss it and bring proposals forward. So it's a no cost to the district, but helps fill some of those positions. That's the direction we want to go.
Now, another follow-up question, the request from parents, has that been approved by the State Board of Education or Commissioner of Education? Because from my knowledge, that's a guarantee for students to be transported if they're a certain distance away. And so we're asking people to give up that right. So to your knowledge, has there been any discussion at the state legislature or the Department of Education or the Commissioner of Education, all of them put together?
Let's just be clear, it's, and I'll speak on this for just a second. It's a voluntary option. It's not something that we would mandate or take away a seat. If a parent happens to be driving their student to school anyways, and is planning to for say the next 30 days, if they let us know that, it's something we can start to work with our routes. At any time throughout the year, any parent in this district has the opportunity to provide transportation. Well, we have the obligation to provide transportation to students. And a waiver wouldn't change that. An opt-out wouldn't change that fundamental right of a parent. It would just give us more latitude if they weren't intending on driving, or they were intending on driving in the short term. Now, I can tell you with certainty, if we did roll something like this out, which we haven't, there will be people that are upset. And that's why I'm saying I don't think there is a good answer here. So no matter what we do, there will be people upset, and rightfully so.
Any other board members have questions? That, then Chris.
What's the occupancy rate now on buses?
So Last year, we were probably around the 30% mark.
Okay. Is that for Seymour or is that for?
That's for Seymour.
So you've already combined routes up to that, to account for that 40%?
Yes.
We started out with originally 15 buses and routes, right?
Yeah, last week we only, there was a couple days we only ran 13.
I'm just trying to anticipate what benefit we would get from the voluntary opt-out. If your occupancy rate is between 60 and 70%, and you've already taken that into account, how many more do you think?
Now I can look on the map and see exactly where.
Right, no, I understand it's better for planning, right? Because you know, obviously, you still have to stop regardless of whether everything is on.
Okay, Beth?
Yeah, Ethan.
Okay, Chris, then you were saying?
What exactly does consolidation of route mean? We have route A and route B with two different drivers, now we have one driver who's doing both.
We could do that, or you could take certain stops out of one route and put it on another bus, and then take another 2 or 3 stops, and kind of cut and paste.
The other thing we're considering is when we do consolidate routes, in many cases, the routes are longer. So they have a larger distance to go, kids are going to be sitting on the bus longer. And that's not ideal either.
Okay, well, Kristen.
Go ahead. Just on that point, what is the average route time now? And what do we anticipate that consolidation will do?
So high school, you're looking at 20 to 25 minutes. Middle school is a little bit longer, you're talking 30 minutes. Elementary is 30 to 40 minutes.
That's right now.
Okay, Kristen. Okay.
So I just wanted to point out to your point about 60 to 70% occupancy. I mean, from what I have heard from community members, is that that's not equally spread. So we've got some buses that have 71 students, some buses that might only have 50. What the opt-out would let you do is know where you don't have to pick a child up. So you could actually, make it so it's more like 70% occupancy across the board, or 80% occupancy across the board, as opposed to some being standing room only, green seat, and others being not so full.
Yeah, you
Is
could
that a correct characterization?
Yeah, I mean, definitely could create, a more efficient bus route.
Yeah.
Just by knowing that.
Right. Yes,
What?
I believe, and I could be wrong about this, so please let me know that we offer transportation to students who are located closer to schools than state statute requires us to. And that would be an extremely difficult and unpopular thing to do. Tell someone that, listen, you may use the bus service, but technically we don't provide it, so we're not going to provide it. Is that something that's on the table, or do you feel like that would be too disruptive? And I'll actually put that towards administrators.
We haven't discussed it at this point.
Okay.
That would only be as a last resort. We had to, with the half month, but they wouldn't do that.
Okay. Yeah, and I understand that. Okay, good to know.
Any other questions? Jay, then we'll go back to Chris.
Through the chair, it was funny because I saw the article about the Massachusetts thing with the National Guard, and it seemed to me that was based on vans, though, like 10 passenger vans, from the quickness of the article that I read. Has the state given you any guidance or supplementary support? I know we're talking about the opt-out and whether, I like the idea, but again, I'm not feeling comfortable in the sense that I haven't heard confidently that the state is saying, yeah, it's okay to just opt out. Now, I read an article about another school district here actually saying, we're not going to say this yet, but they were going to pay people, to opt out. Oh, we'll give you like a credit to the state. Maybe the state would do that. But what kind of guidance or support has the state of Connecticut given for
We've got no guidance. Every company is handling it themselves.
And has there been, a follow-up? I don't know what kind of consortium you guys have of bus companies,
We have it's called PASTA. It's our state association of school bus contractors. So what we've done as a group is we've hired a public relations person. You've probably heard of her, Dan Baldwin. She's on TV. She has a media group, and we've created a website what we're trying to do is cater to the whole industry, not just specific companies. So we created a website for fares so people can go on and basically send in an email, hey, I live here, and it's going to go to the right bus company. We also did a press conference back in June with all the major news stations where we pleaded our case. You know, we went on TV and said, we're short bus drivers, come down and fill out an application today. So we've been working with our competitors because we're all in this together. You know, we're all fighting for bus drivers, but we're all fighting to serve our customers the best as we can. You know, that's the goal, is to serve you better.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
And I guess my question is directed for anyone really. How is this affecting attendance? Are we getting the schools on time? And if not, have we thought about maybe making stops a little bit earlier to prevent that snowball effect?
I can just tell you that Mr. Ford at the high school and the assistant principals, they've all been working very diligently with trying to get the traffic flow and getting the buses through on time and getting the kids. Also working with the parents. Kudos to the parents that are bringing their kids up to Seymour High School because there's less kids on the bus. And I was up there this morning about 10 to 7. I saw the diligence and the planning that was going on. A great job that the administration was doing, as well as the resource officer and the police, and trying to make sure that everybody got in on time. They were finished at 7:20. But I'm telling you, the administration team didn't stop, and neither did the resource officer. Just trying to get the flow of traffic, but just to with the buses and trying to be on time. So this is something that they've been doing because it was that traffic is backing up, and it still is, but it's getting the flow and getting them in on time. With the elementaries, not really sure the principals could address that. I've actually been riding bus routes. I had a great experience. I want to just compliment the bus drivers and their diligence with the children and the kindness. I plan on riding more bus routes, but I rode both Thursday and Friday, and I plan on trying to ride every route that our elementary students. And that gives me a true vision too of how many kids are on the bus and how it's going. And I can tell you the elementary routes are long. Get later. So our principal at Chatfield, Preston David, you want to say anything about the time frame and their
Sure. David Leckman, Chatfield Preston principal. One bus in particular has been running late over the past several days, and so for morning arrival, so today it was just 3-4 minutes after 9 o'clock. By 9:05, all the students were in the classrooms. Just double check maybe in the class of teachers. If that's not cheating. Dismissal has been a little bit longer in the process because of the shortage of drivers. We have one bus in particular that seems to be a bus that's impacted very frequently, and I do feel sorry for the families impacted by that because we have that bus has left COS, school day ends at 3:30, and that bus has left after 4 o'clock on several occasions. So.
Thanks for clarifying. Bungie?
Hi, Mary Sue Feige. We have combined routes at Bungay School. We work with Pat Boyle and Steve to do that, and that seemed to help some. We still have routes that are about 15 minutes late in arriving in the afternoon, some about 30 to 40 minutes, and we send out those messages to the parents as soon as we are notified. So thankful for the communication so we can get those messages out there. So it is in the afternoon. Some of the routes are almost 50 to 60 minutes before we hear
Can I
that.
ask a follow-up on Mary Sue? How about the transportation? Because unfortunately, your school, as I know, has the worst exit and entrance because it wasn't made the way the newer schools are.
do know now that we have police officers there to assist.
Right, we've actually called for police officers one afternoon because the traffic was way up Bungay Road there. So we have a bus, about 9 o'clock, 9:05, we are able to really clean out the lot, but it's really, a lot of people are out there opening all the car doors there, and our school security officer also assists with the traffic there. What's really nice is when the buses all seem to come in the parking lot at the same time, it's like, okay, we can stop, and then everything else goes, so that's nice. The bus drivers are amazing, they're doing a great job, and they're so kind under the circumstances, so.
Middle school, struggling, Kathleen?
Kristen, do you have a question on the middle school?
No, it's fine. Please. Thank you.
So you're Principal Seymour Middle School. So we had one bus, Alexa said, consistently late coming home. Today we thought we had everything on track because we did have bus consolidation as well. But then there was ground wires, so one of our buses was very late today. They left probably about 3:40. But we do send out the emails to the parents so they know. We give them the option to come pick up. Our arrival, they're coming in a little bit later, but not past arrival time. We're used to all of our buses being in about 7:50 last year, so they're getting in by 8 o'clock. So students are able to grab their breakfast and be seated for period 1 classes for arrival time.
High school?
You haven't had many issues with the arrival times of the buses. The issue that we're having is just the arrival of school, period, between the volume of cars and buses coming in all at one time in the morning. But Dr. Compton was there to witness it this morning. We have a plan in place that we're currently working on to try to get the traffic moving a little bit smoother and quicker. But as far as the arrival times of the buses, we've had no issue with the high school.
Okay, Kristen, did you have?
Yeah, so I was just curious to know what the experience of those children are like when they're at school until, 10 after 4 or so. I mean, do you try to get them outside, mask off, do you have snacks or drinks for them? I just wanted to know what their experience is like.
I just know the one bus I was on, they were on the bus for about 40 minutes, and I chatted, and I had a good time talking, but I don't know the ones that are left in the schools. I don't know. Mary Sue?
Dave Electman, Principal Chapter Trustee. What we do when the weather's cooperative is that we would have that bus that those students come out because fortunately, it's not fortunate, but because there's one bus, we are able to have them line up on the sidewalk outside, so therefore they can be spaced out, and also having their masks off because they're outside. So not to prolong. It is tricky because sometimes it's not for as long as we appreciate all the communication. Sometimes All-Star is working actively to solve the problem as it's going. So sometimes the information conveyed changes. So we may be planning on, what happened at the end of last week was we were notified a bus was going to do a run. And this happened a lot in the spring last year. A bus does its run, then comes back to do another bus's run because of a shortage of drivers. So again, we are facing the staff dismissal time as well for the required time. So, which would be 3:55. So we are trying to be totally respectful of the contractual time and have it in Ms. Albertson's and I and with the office staff's coordination by 3:55. The only other thing I just want to throw out there, just for awareness, is that because of the, whenever there's a delay at a different school, obviously there's a trickle-down, a domino effect for delay than the elementary school. So we have had some students on a small van and this one bus in particular clearing consistently over the last week between 4:45 and 5 o'clock. So again, when the school day ended at 3:30, that's a long time for beyond the day. Thank you.
Okay, Kristen. I'd like to welcome our first select woman, Mrs. Gibbons, to the meeting. Your busy schedule. Thank you.
have anything like that, or do we utilize, or do we, you know, because I feel bad that the burden seems to be on the staff here to continuously be monitoring and sending out, you know, I've seen Mr. Levinson's tweets, I'm sure Mrs. Spivey says, I'm not sure, you know, maybe their messages, but our staff are constantly on top of it, thankfully, but does the bus company have any kind of plans and work to, you know?
So there are apps out there that do that, obviously, but I find that in these times, it wouldn't be very helpful because of all the changes. And then somebody has to go in and manage all those changes and then reassign those kids. And if that doesn't get done, then you're going to create panic with parents, and you're going to generate a lot more phone calls. You know, even if the bus breaks down, and because that's how it tracks it by the bus, and you put them on a different bus, now the parent is looking at the app, and they're seeing their kid at the bus yard, and not on the route, and they're freaking out. So, we found those apps to not be very helpful. Maybe in a smaller setting where there's, you know, I mean, your terminal has got 3 other towns, so it's a busy place. There's 70 buses that run out of there. You would almost need a full-time person to manage that app and update it constantly for 12 hours a day, which, you know, is a huge cost. And like I said, I think would cause a lot of unnecessary phone calls again.
Okay, any other board members have questions? Yes, Chris.
I'm just curious, what is it that's making the buses arrive so late at the elementary schools? Because there is that kind of full hour between dismissal at the middle school and dismissal at the elementary school.
I am not aware of a bus showing up an hour late, so.
No, not an hourly, just, I'm asking what makes them show up late at all? Because there is an hour between the middle school dismissal time and the elementary school dismissal.
They have to do 2 middle school routes. That would cause them to be late. Even like on the vans, they're doubling up on the van runs, so one van is doing 2 runs. So they either have to put them all on the bus at the same time, or they have to go back to the middle school and pick up the second load of kids, and then go back and finish the route.
I mean, have you thought about having some routes dismissed earlier, 15 minutes? I mean, I don't know how that would help. I mean, it doesn't really work with the middle school with the periods, but it might help with the, I'd rather have some children in school 15 minutes early than have some children stuck at school half an hour late.
I really think the opt-out form is going to be very helpful. I mean, with losing 2 more drivers in the next week and a half, we're certainly going to have to revisit our routes and see what we can do. But knowing who's on the bus and who's not is going to be our best tool right now.
Do you need a motion for that, Mr. King?
Motion for what?
To offer an opt-out, not to offer an opt-out, to make an opt-out form available. Because I hear what you're saying. We're not putting a plea out there for please don't send your child on the bus. What we're doing is asking parents to have that as a regular part of their routine to document it for the bus company so you can try to be more efficient in the route. So I'm asking if there should be a motion, or if that is something that administration can just put together and send out to parents.
Dr. Thompson?
I think it's okay to add it as a motion. Dave, can I give you some assistance? I mean, it's something that would just be a form, it'd be a temporary thing.
We have some already drafted up from some of the other districts.
Okay, so let's just give that to.
Sure, and we'll put this on our own letterhead.
I think it'd be nice if that is an additional.
Sure, I mean, we can absolutely have a board motion on it if you'd like, or we can take action on it. If not that, I don't think it's necessary, but the most important thing is that you're aware of what we're doing before we do it. The parents are aware of this before we're rolling it out, so you don't get 100 phone calls that might just be a squirrel.
Right. So you don't have to.
Okay, Mr. Stanley?
Mr. Chairman, has there been any guidance from the State Department of Education with regard to this issue? No. I had a discussion with one of the State Department of Education attorneys in the spring about this issue from another district, and he effectively said it's not permitted.
It's not permitted not to offer a seat for a student who wants it. If a parent notifies us that they don't need and they're not planning on fixing the bus, we don't need to have that stop on the road.
Just the attorney indicated that we could not, this other district could not, including this one.
And that's an option. I mean, we don't have to, again, roll this out. I know of other districts have, so that may be going against this particular attorney's position, but again, the state hasn't given us, as a school, a lot of guidance, and I know we're doing everything we can. So if they want to come down and slap our wrist after the fact, I guess we could talk about that, but
I think it'd be best, and for the board, definitely don't add it as additional motion, because we don't want to use the word of education. We
That's what I was going to ask.
I think we should obtain guidance from the State Department of Education. We've been changing the guidance of that position of the attorney at this time.
Okay, so we'll contact our, should we contact our lawyer, ask this, at board state?
Or something from the administration.
Administration, yes. Okay, Kristen?
I mean, yes, I'm just quite aware of the time sensitive, there's a lot of urgency behind here. So I mean, I would like to say we could have a virtual special meeting, like as soon as possible, as long as we've got a quorum there, because it's not like we can just wait and address this at the next meeting. Like, we could address this now.
Well, I think you're a good one, that once we hear from, we can direct the superintendent to check with the state, and we can have, check with the board also. Kristen Bruno, and then Chris.
I'm wondering if we're able to cross-reference the high school students who have obtained parking passes with the bus routes to see if that gives us any data.
Something to regard to students that are driving.
Okay. You're good? Okay, now, any other questions? Because I have one, but I'm debating whether I want to ask it now or do I want to ask it later when Dr. Conklin told me that Mr. Stacy is going to speak about sports. My question has to do with sports-related busing issues. So I
As in
don't,
regards with busing, we'll let him come up and speak. One of the things under, since this is the bus.
you want to come a little forward,
You can
Mr.
come on in
Stacy?
front, and one of the items on my superintendent's report was to discuss Seymour Middle School sports and to validate great teamwork today with the principal, assistant principal, the athletic coordinator, and our athletic director, and also your assistant. Okay?
Okay, but like, stop you there, I would like us just to stay on the bus issue and come more to that one later on.
My report.
Okay, so if you could just, my question would be the busing issue of after school, because I'm well aware of, and people think just varsity, we have junior varsity, sub-varsity, freshman, whatever, that some of those fields are not lit, so and, pretty soon we'll move the clock back there.
So our bus issue this year is, we had a good dress rehearsal for it last year. And we're running with the same, pretty much, restrictions that we had last year. And the restriction that we're facing, for those who don't know, is that we have 2 available bus times. We have 1:15 in the afternoon, and we have 4:30 in the late afternoon. So we have to, instead of having our traditional game times, we've had to adjust start times, sometimes the day of the game, just to accommodate other schools, their facilities, and what have you. So for instance, if we know for a fact that we're playing at a school that does not have a venue with lights, we're jumping on that 1:15 bus to get to a 3 o'clock game or a 3:15 game, whatever that might be. If the facility has lights, or it's an indoor event such as a volleyball match or whatever, we can go forward with a 4:30, 4:45 bus and still start our matches around 6 o'clock. So the bus issue that we're facing this year is no different than last year. Now, when we there's times when we run into a jam where we're competing at a school that's further out. So a 1:15 Seymour bus can't make that run because they then can't get back for the high school run that they have at 2 o'clock. So what All Star has done is they've reached out to their other lots
So let's say, for instance, we're playing in Torrington, a Wolcott bus might be coming down and picking our kids up, taking them to their game, and then doing their respective runs. So my hat is off to All-Star for the work that they've done despite these limitations when it comes to the athletics. And the true testament to the work that we've done with All-Star is that we haven't lost games, not win-loss. We haven't lost any games on the schedule. We've always found a way to get them in. And it takes a lot of coordinating with the bus company and with the other athletic directors of the opposing schools. We're doing the best we can with those 2 windows of time right now.
Now, the education loss, playing in my mind, we're talking 45 approximate minutes.
Correct.
Per period.
Correct.
And I'm wondering, it's not continuous, for example, one team that happens to have 4 of them that won't 45, so they lost 4 full periods.
We're very mindful of who's losing the time. We keep running track of that. Mm-hmm. And when in doubt, we always deflect, we always defer to the later time. But the one fall sport that we're really going to have some trouble with is cross country because the courses aren't lit. Right. So they will be missing. They'll be leaving on early buses quite regularly. But we do try to minimize the number of times each team is dismissed early. And with our rotating schedule at the high school, too, it's not as if they're missing the same classes all the time.
Right. Okay, any questions on the bus transportation with sports?
So when you talk about a 1:15 and a 4:30 time, are those 2 windows because of the bus driver shortage? Certainly pre-COVID, we never had that limitation of just 2 windows of time.
Pre-COVID, we could do a lot of different things. If we were short drivers in Seymour, we could get drivers from other towns. But since COVID, we've lost that ability to get drivers from other towns.
Totally understand. I guess my question is, so I understand 1:15 would be before the high school lets out, 4:30 is after the elementary schools should be home. But previous, like going back to 2019, we did have people leave school at 3 o'clock on a bus. So were those always non-district bus drivers?
Could have been office staff, it could have been me, could have been dispatcher, could have been out-of-town drivers.
I have a follow-up question.
What?
So with regard to middle school sports, I guess our school start and stop times are not that atypical for other areas. So how are some districts able to put students on a bus at 3 o'clock, but we're not?
Some districts are staffed properly, they have enough school bus drivers. I can tell you from my 18 locations, 16 of them are not. And we cover Oxford, we're in all your surrounding towns. We go all the way up to Torrington, and we're having the same issue.
So every district that you work with, or 16 out of 18, they only have 2 opportunities for extracurricular transportation, and one is before the first bus run dismissal starts, and one is after?
Yes. It's not just our company either. This is statewide.
Okay, person?
Yes.
Can I also add to Steve's point? Last year, we were in such a jam that we were encouraged to reach out to other bus companies to try to provide the transportation for our kids, and they couldn't accommodate us either. So we reached out to we had 2 different bus companies that we reached out to, and they were pretty much operating within the same windows of time.
Now, the thing that just popped in my head as a former AD, the cross-country, smaller numbers, we used to rent vans to transport smaller number of teams. I remember for golf teams and stuff like that. Is that a possibility with the cross-country?
No, because our cross-country team is, the boys and girls travel together,
and you're looking at an excess of 30 students.
Okay, that answers the question. Go ahead, Chrissy.
Can I ask a question about state requirements for providing transportation to extracurriculars? Is that something that parents can do, or is it just, I don't know what the state requirements are for that?
I think it's by school district. I know a couple of the other towns last year, they gave parents the option to drive their students to sports.
Having parents drive students to sports is certainly better than no sports at all.
That would have to be parent of specified student.
I don't really know that. I mean, why
No,
would parents carpool all the time everywhere?
But that's not school sponsored.
I'm asking the question, Mr. Stroll, that's all. We didn't know that. I mean, we shouldn't
Well,
just assume that. You know what I mean?
My experience is you can't do that because there used to be parents that would request to take a child off the bus and bring them home. I mean, at the meet, say, I want to bring home Chris and Chris, and Chris is not your child. I know as a coach, I would say no. And so, in the reverse, to bring them, I think would be an issue too that could be liable for us. That's just that's my experience. I don't think that's changed. Fred, do you have any experience with that from Sheldon? Okay. Maybe that's another question for Floyd. Any other questions for Mrs. Stacy on this topic? Okay, thank you. Don't go away. Okay. Okay, moving along. Anybody else have any more questions for Mr. Gardner? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Dr. Boyd, you are next.
This is a tough act to follow. I submitted my report as per usual. The only data point that wasn't available at this point, because the different schools are doing their PMT meetings currently, is the tiered intervention that usually is at the tail end of the report. So my hope is that those meetings are starting in some of the schools this week. I'll have that information, that baseline data for you for the October board education meeting. Just the general themes that you'll see, we have a handful fewer students with IEPs now than we did in the spring. That's to be expected because of graduations and kids moving out, even with students moving in. The one area that we're actually a little below what I projected is our students that are out of district placed at the therapeutic programs. I was expecting our number to be slightly higher than that, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. We did have a number of students that graduated, those we accounted for, but we've had one withdrawal, one move, so we've had some variance that I didn't account for. The other theme that you'll see is the number of students at the high school this year. For students with IEPs is higher than that of where we ended the year. Had a large flux of kids going from middle school to high school, in addition to also some students that moved in with some IEPs. But even with that increase at the high school, our net is still, a few students fewer to start the year across the district. And then the students with 504 plans, every year we have fewer students starting the year than had finished the year for a variety of reasons. That's not uncommon. I think that will start to even itself out in the coming months. Nothing unanticipated on my part, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions, Dr. Boyd? Mrs. Brewer first, and Beth.
Looking at the numbers from June to now where we are, would you consider reallocating staff across assignments just to match the need, or are the predictions close enough?
The structure of the secondary level, I think, makes it conducive to being a little more flexible for changes in where at the elementary level, you know, every student with an IEP doesn't change class. They go into a group, and sometimes the groups get large, and you have to reallocate or you know, create new groups. Where the high school, you know, we're not in a position where we have to create more co-taught classes, although I will say that the co-taught classes in some instances at the high school are large. I wouldn't want to see them get much larger than they currently are. But the secondary level, I think, accounts for some of that. So I think we're in a decent position as of right now. But if something were to change substantively, certainly bring that information to the board.
Okay, Beth?
No, I'm good. That's all.
Oh, okay. Any other questions from Dr. Boyd? Okay, moving along. To the updates, business manager vacancy, Dr. Compton.
Yes, just very quickly, as we discussed in the Finance Committee, we plan on closing out the business manager position by September 20th. All candidates, if they're missing anything, like letters of recommendation or certain areas of anything that doesn't complete the application, we'll give them a call. The 08 fire certification that most people, of course, have to have, that might be delayed a little bit just due to crime checks. So if they've already applied and the state says that they're eligible for it, we would like to meet with the Finance Committee September 20th and the 23rd, whatever times we can get worked out, and then bring to the full board on October 4th a decision that also left one or two candidates finalists go into executive session and let you hear some of the continued interview process and just to wrap up recommended candidate. I think it'd be really good in the end for the school board to get to hear from one finalist or two that we bring to the table to recommend. Also, I sent you as board members the job description again, and also the posting of the position, which was posted back in February. And so we want to try to bring closure on this. I'm always a believer in letting the process work. Best candidate would rise to the top of the process. We'll also make sure they're given some type of performance assessment to show that their knowledge of budget and how to deal with the school system.
Okay, and just a reminder to board members that for notes of the board, the business manager description is something you remember we used to have an assistant superintendent in charge of finances and business manager. This is different, so please make sure that we look it over carefully, because the other position that we had previously with that person was in the education retirement package because we made it an assistant superintendent. This is not. So just please check that over and give any suggestions. Any questions on the business manager vacancy update? Okay, the summer hiring report. I think that's going to be Mrs. Kenda, am I correct?
It certainly can.
Well,
This summer, Leanne and Ms. Penza and all of the employees that were hired.
So it was attached. It is lengthy. I believe that during the summer, a few different times, I kept you apprised with an intermediate hiring report so that you would not be overwhelmed with the large number of hirings that you saw tonight. And Leanne worked really hard on this report to try to help you understand who the person is we hired. The job number means nothing to you, but everything to us. The position, who they were replacing, if they were replacing somebody. Again, whether they need a team or not is not relevant to you, but it's relevant to us in terms of whether they need a team mentor. And some notes, because some of the people that we hired, as I had mentioned earlier this year, hired and resigned for either a better opportunity, a more stable position, like you can see a permanent whether a couple of long-term substitute positions, we do still see some postings being circulated, or central office registration secretary resigning for a different opportunity. So you will still see some postings, but these are the summer hires. And then that now that school is back in session, those will read directly through the Board of Education.
We want to focus too on trying to retain employees as much as possible. I'm a big believer in exit surveys and really trying to understand why people exit. It's very important. We want people to stay in the parking lot, not leave. And we want to see plenty of people putting in for jobs. But due to COVID, this really has put a strain on candidates throughout the United States. But we really want to address and do our due diligence, and I plan on going back and reflecting and sharing with you generally why some people have left.
And just so board members know, I historically, the last 6-7 years, gone to one of the training sessions for which teachers just to introduce myself to the board and show them that the board is interested in them. And just give them a little bit of a little kind of a speech. So
It's always well.
Yes, you did a really good job.
well, I thought our new teacher leaders did a nice job in presenting all the
They did. I said that to them, but
Okay, good. Any questions? Board members on the staff? Yes, Beth.
Just from a vacancy rate perspective, do we have to track that in terms of like, do we know where we were this time last year? I mean, I know it sounds like we're worse, but I don't have any comparison.
It's definitely, Leanne spent an entire summer in regards with the amount of just the vacancies and people coming and going. Because of COVID, people have also more choices. There are different reasons and different recruitment with different school districts. And if you're a teacher and you're brand new, you're going to go where you get that best package. So we've done a lot of moving around, and there's still a teacher shortage in certain areas. Our big thing too is paraprofessionals.
And that's always the case, right? So you're right, it does sound scary.
It's everywhere.
But I've been here since 2015, and there's never been a year that we started the first day of school fully staffed.
Right, that's my point. Are
So,
we 20% under, are we 10% under, where were we this time last year? That's what I'm just
I
trying to
don't
figure
know,
out.
I wouldn't feel comfortable making a guess, because my involvement in this year was significantly different than my involvement in last year. I know a lot of people this year.
And is there anything we should be doing differently to retain, attract, or?
I think just the process of personnel in regards to recruitment, with career fairs, principals, and Tim's did a phenomenal job, but it's a process, and you're only as good as what you have. And you've really got to study why the people leave, but it gets competitive. And your salaries are good, but there's some things that we just need to look back upon to see how we can get better.
There might be some things with the paraprofessional associations that we could.
And my experience with that too is also word of mouth is good. You know, young people who are in the education field, you build up some more school systems. You know, talk to them and say, come and join us. Because sometimes that direct connect can be a big difference in just job fair and stuff like that. So anybody that knows good quality teachers and parents out there, encourage them, come join the team.
Through the chair.
Yes.
And just as a follow-up to that, the reinstatement of the internship program creates more of that buzz. You know, those people who are interns in our district, who then are sharing their experiences with their colleagues in their professional classes at the colleges. Might be more buzz for us.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move along to Chairman's comments. I would just say very briefly, I was humbled by the award. And you notice my little Ava gets for the answer. Not yet free, but she's getting there. And it's very nice to be recognized for all these years. But more than just years, I think it's commitment to, and I pride myself on
great school community, and also with their town council and first select woman's club. It'll be a good team.
Okay, thank you, Jay. You remind me what I was going to say. I would say that Dr. Compton and I attended the first day of school at all the different buildings, and that's a nice thing to see, the smile on the faces of the young people coming into our schools and the smile on the faces of the teachers also. Okay, any other board member comments? Yes, Kristen.
I just wanted to say I look forward to the superintendent's comments as they relate to middle school sports, and with the, agreement of the board, if it's appropriate, I would be interested in adding that to our agenda after the superintendent makes her comments. It would also be great to have an understanding when things of a legal nature come up and we say, oh, we're going to reach out to our board attorney. Who holds that responsibility? Like, who's on deck for that action step? If that's something that could be addressed in comments, that would be wonderful.
Okay. I'm confused. Did you have a question about the legal part of asking that? Is that what you're...
No, it's who owns that action step. When
We need who owns the action step. That's what I'm confused with. What does that mean? Who owns the action step? Who can ask people?
Who's going to reach out to the attorney when we say it's a collective?
It's the board chair, vice chair, the superintendent, and the secretary to reach out to the attorney.
Okay, I understand that. What I'm trying to get clarity on is when we say things like, we're going to reach out to our attorney, who specifically is going to reach out to the attorney on a particular issue that we talk about, so that we don't make assumptions that the board chair will, or the vice chair, or the superintendent.
Most of the time it will be the superintendent. The superintendent can, or if there's a question that pertains more to the board matters than superintendent matters, then it would be one of our three.
Yeah.
That clarified better?
Yes.
Okay.
My question was about the former.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you.
Okay, I'm going to pass on the Cape Summer Leadership Conference, due to the time and stuff like that. I will say that I was disappointed, but Jay also attended, and so did Mrs. Tennyson. Now it's up to you, Dr. Compton and the superintendent.
Okay, so that we can make this quick and expedite, because we have another little celebration of honoring someone tonight very quickly in my superintendent's report. But I would like for our Director of Athletics, Mr. Ernie, to come back up and let's talk about the situation with the Seymour Middle School. And again, I just want to say that the principal today, the vice principal, the athletic coordinator, and you work very diligently. You've got a game plan going. If you would kind of just give an overview of how we're going to get sports up and coming and tryouts and so forth, and meeting with other coordinators. So if you'll do that, take charge, take lead, because we had several emails that were being sent and parents really concerned. We promised that athletics is valued in Seymour. Academics is first, but athletics is next, and priority as well as the arts. So if you'll give us an overview of what you did today and great work.
Absolutely. Just for a frame of reference, the way that the Junior Naugatuck Valley League is set up is similar, slightly different than the way that the regular Naugatuck Valley League is set up. So each NVL school has an athletic director, and in our case we have an athletic director and an assistant athletic director. The middle schools are a separate entity, and they have, and it varies from school to school, district to district, on who oversees the athletic programs at the middle schools. Some schools, the high school athletic director oversees them. Other schools have a stipended coordinator, and that's how we're set up here. So we have an athletic director, an assistant athletic director at the high school, and we have an athletic coordinator at the middle school level. Last week, we had our first NVL athletic directors meeting of the year. We meet once a month, and that's all the high school athletic directors coming together, at which point it was briefly discussed on what middle school sports was going to look like. And because of the fact that the schools weren't accurately represented by their coordinators, it was really tough to gain any traction on what middle school sports was going to look like. So the middle school coordinators began their discussion through email,
And as expected, they are meeting tomorrow at 2:45 to hash out what the fall season of middle school sports is going to look like in the Junior Nautical Valley League. Earlier today, as Dr. Compton mentioned, I met with Kathy Federowitz, Jody Roden, and Craig Kasowskis, who is the coordinator here at the middle school. And yes, we know that there are bus issues, but we did brainstorm some possible solutions, which I'll get to in a minute. But the good news is that up front, soccer will begin their tryouts later this week at the middle school level. Now, what the season actually looks like, that remains to be seen, and that will be discussed in depth by the coordinators at tomorrow's meeting. Once that meeting happens, I'll follow up with Craig, and he'll report back as to what the group collectively decides, and then we'll get that communication out to the parents and the athletes. But there will be fall sports. What the season looks like will be determined most likely tomorrow. And our soccer tryouts will begin later this week. I believe Thursday is the day that both the boys and girls will be starting their tryouts. Thursday and Friday will be the tryouts at the middle school level. Now, cross country and volleyball at the middle school level, that's still up in the air. We don't have coaches for those teams yet. Those positions have been posted, and we're looking to fill those.
We have a coach for cross country.
Okay. All right. That's good. So now we're down to just volleyball then. But at any rate, the coordinators will meet tomorrow. There will be a fall season. Once I know what that fall season looks like, we'll work together to produce a communication to the middle school community.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Any questions? I was first, any questions for Mr. Stacy? I think maybe Mr. Stacy, we could explain a little bit that the league has already lost Sacred Heart. So the school is down one, and there are many schools in our area, especially further up. There's a Northwest that has 3 different high schools, that's a 1 football team. There's a couple others that are combined, so I don't know if I would call it a problem, but the reality of it is there seems to be less kids that are participating in sports, and some schools don't have, because, 30 has 7 total football players, 30 high schools, used to be a state champion. There are other schools that have a hard time, will be getting players I saw in certain sports. So that problem is also at the middle school level also, does not just exist at the high school level. So we're not unique in that.
To your point, Mr. Terrell, 2 weeks ago, our league at the high school level actually had to put out a Google form to find out which schools were offering which levels of which sports. So JV, freshman, varsity, because it varies so drastically from one school to the next. And the trickle down has hit the middle school level, because with the uncertainty of middle school sports, the student athletes have looked elsewhere, to ensure some type of athletic experience. So it's common at the high school level, the numbers are dwindling, and I'm not surprised that middle school athletes have looked elsewhere just to get themselves some type of exposure.
Okay, any questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Stacy.
I'll go ahead and briefly do the superintendent's report. I would just like to say the vaccination percentages for the district overall being vaccinated is 80%. I just want to compliment the great work of Becky Bennett and the other school nurses. They've done a phenomenal job. Everybody's turning in their vaccination cards, and those that if they're not doing that, they have not been vaccinated, of course, they will be doing the weekly testing. So I think that's good for you to know what the percentage is. It's almost 80%, like 79.8. The next thing I would like to say, we're very, very pleased with Griffin Hospital and what Ms. Bennett has been able to work out with the hospital in regards with where We're going to be working on the Seymour Public Schools Communication Advisory Council. If anybody would like to serve on this, please contact me or one of the board members. This is something that we've discussed that is needed as far as communication and making sure that various people have input, and I think it'll be a really good committee. I also would like to say thank you to the individual board members with interviews. We're just about to wrap up. We got 1 or 2 left. It's went really well, and also I'll be conducting individual administrator interviews as well, and also with union president support personnel. Just very quickly, I would like to just mention that we're going to be doing math testing in all of the schools. This is something that Mrs. Tenza and the principals have been putting in place. We're also going to be working on, when we're talking about academics very quickly, about goal setting. Goal setting is going to be occurring on all levels, from the superintendent goals, district goals, also administrator goals, teacher goals. And really, when students get at a certain level, they need goals as well. So we'll be coming back next month. I'll be getting your guidance in regards to the superintendent goals and finalize those for board approval. The other thing is to set a fall retreat with us as board members, and hopefully we can get that set up sometime towards the end of October. I would also like to personally say a special thank you to our first select woman, Anne-Marie. Thank you for your outstanding help on Thursday, September 2nd, when the power was off at Seymour High School. You came to our rescue. Mrs. Tenza had no power. I had no internet. Where I was currently staying, it went down, and we had no communication. We sent out a blast, and you were there for us, so thank you. It was also good to get to meet with you and the town and emergency management and that complete team up there on that morning. So I just want to say a big thank you. Also, you met with Mrs. Tenza and myself in your office and invited us down. Thank you. And you also attended our convocation. So thank you so much, as well as the state representative and 3 other board members. So that just really means a lot. There are some things that are on the superintendent's report. I'm not going to go into detail. I've sent it to the board members due to our time situation. I think it's very important right now to, there's somebody here that's been doing a great job this summer, and I'd also like to also mention, first of all, our administrators that are in this room. Would you stand at this time? Please stand. I just want you to know, between your team and also Mrs. Von der Tenza, you did a tremendous job this summer. Keep standing. By the past 2 months, you made sure, academically in preparation for the opening of school, that everything was in place. As a district, you didn't miss a beat. And I also want to just salute you for what you've done and the welcoming that you've given me coming on board. I also want to take this time to recognize Ms. Von der Tenza and her outstanding exemplary job of serving as the interim superintendent for the past 2 months. The transition was seamless. When you come in and you know that it's like passing the baton. But this lady was willing, and she devoted hours on end. I'll never forget looking at and seeing her out the window back there in the conference room. And I'm starting to enter the building on August the 16th, and she says, "It's you. It's for sure you." I think so. I think they're going to hire me tonight, so it comes up. So, tonight I'd like for you to stand up because I'm going to give you, first of all, the Board of Education has something to give you. Just a minute.
I love it.
And so she liked my water bottle that I found in Morristown, New Jersey. So now you're getting one tonight. And Leanne, you're getting one. All get a little leadership of study. At this time, the board chair, and on behalf of the Board of Education, would like to present you with some flowers. So go over there. Thank you. We're being a great team, and I can tell you the talent of this administration, the talent of the staff, the ability of the students is amazing. And as I've said, we're proud to be Seymour, we're proud to be a Wildcat, and let's get this moving into a new chapter. So thank you.
Mrs. Pender, would you like to say anything?
So actually, I really would. I'll keep it short. There wasn't much that I could think of that would unify us more than gratitude. I did a lot of research this summer on what could make us work better together as a team. And I told the administrators at the retreat, I came across research that said gratitude is the most underrated way to strengthen your team. And I had to think about that. How could gratitude make a team stronger? And we talked about it at the administrative level. And I think if you think about it, you can realize many powerful ways that gratitude can strengthen your work with other people. And I did some research, and it talks about journaling gratitude and making it a habit. And so every administrator received a 52-week gratitude box, 52 thank you cards, and a journal. And every school received one. I'm encouraging the teachers to try to find ways to have gratitude trickle down into their classrooms. And the first selectwoman's office received a gratitude box, and the Board of Education is receiving one. There's 52 cards in here, so including Karina, take 5 or 6 of them and find a way to spread them out and show gratitude. And the more specific you are, the better chance that somebody has of replicating that with somebody else. And there's a box in our central office. I love it to spread across the district because there are ways to find positive in the last year and a half that we've had. So we're going to start over here with Karina, and somebody gets to keep the journal. Every once in a while, just shoot an email to the person who's the keeper of the journal, and let's meet together again next year. The administrators know they have to bring their journal back at the retreat next year.
Mrs.
Christian,
Pender,
hang on,
I
it's to you.
understand purposely
To the
in
secretary.
for the secretary, since the secretary, I haven't seen them
I did
take
agree.
any minutes or anything, so this would be perfect. So as board chair, I'm not, that's the board clerk. No. The Board of Education. So as one of my auspices as the board chair, I'm appointing you.
That's very cool. Thank you, Mr. Seymour.
Oh, I love being voluntold to do that.
Also, a very special thank you to Rob Dyer tonight for setting all this up. Thank you, Jared. You all been a team. You will have microphones next month, so that the auditorium will be better. So I just want to say a special thank you. He spent a lot of time and he was able to put this together himself. To have a company come in and do cover the board, it's going to be $2,000.
Okay, any questions? I'm assuming that's the end of your report. Any questions of the superintendent? Okay, then we move along to information. You see the certified resignations and the non-certified resignations. And then we will come to the second opportunity for a public comment. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to make a comment? I'll ask the second time, is there anybody from the public who would like to make a comment? passes because it gets 5-0. But anyway. Is there anyone else, third time, anyone else in the public can make a comment? Seeing none, hearing none, the public comment portion of the second public comment portion is ended. We have an executive session, we have a personnel matter, and there's a motion for consideration. What is the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board enter into executive session to discuss on a matter involving the conduct of the associate superintendent, the board open right practice to the council and respond to executive session.
Is there a second to the table?
Second that motion.
Mrs. Harmon. Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstention? Mrs. Mistera, I didn't see who voted. Thank you. That was 9-0. For everybody else, we'll probably come back after the executive session to make a motion. If you want to stay, you stay. If you want to leave, you can leave.
Thank you for the love. I'd like to get to go home. Thank you for the time this evening. I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Regular session at 10:19. Okay. Who would like to make a motion?
Let me see. No. I'll make a motion to increase for the period of 2021 to 2022, a 2% increase for the associate superintendent.
Second.
Okay, discussion. That was Jay, and that was Kristen. Okay, is there any discussion, Peter?
No. It's just happening along.
Oh, thank you.
Does anybody have the number there for the chair? Or should I put that? We don't need that. No.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call this time. Ms. Bruno?
Yes.
Mr. Champagne?
Yes.
Mr. Garofalo?
Yes.
Ms. Harmon?
Yes.
Mr. Hatfield?
Yes.
Mr. Kubik?
Yes.
Mrs. Mysteria?
Yes.
Mr. Stanek? And Mr. Schlow, yes. So that passes 9-0. There's no abstentions and there's no accusing, there's no opposed. Motion.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank
Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks for all you did.
wait, that was Chris? Who seconded it? Peter did? Yes.
Have a great night.